Ah, good.
Shenmue is not a game for everybody. The gameplay can be boiled down to what is essentially a walking simulator for the first couple of hours, where you'll have your first fight scene, which feels very out of place and unprepared for, and all of this gameplay can be boiled down to padding to fill out the overly long Resident Evil style puzzle that's going on in the background. But if I was to genuinely think that way about everything, I wouldn't have gotten this far down into the game or enjoyed it as much as I have. And if I say that it's not meant for everybody, then what makes it for some people? Well, to answer that question, I had drawn out this kind of like script, and I've tried to do this multiple times, but we're going to take these things that I've compiled that I am going to show on the screen to prove that I did try to do some kind of script, and we're just going to get rid of that because I am no good at writing scripts or following them and making the presentation seem believable and natural. So, fuck that. We're going to drink some IPA with this knit hat thing that I got on that I'm using to cover up my lack of a haircut that I desperately need, and we're going to get into why I actually enjoy Shenmue. See that title, little bait and switch I did on you? You were thinking I was going to talk shit about the game, weren't you? Shenmue Story is pretty simple. You're a guy's son, your dad's dead, and you have to run around and find the people that killed him so you can kill them. Pretty simple, easy to follow and understand. And to find these people, you're going to do a lot of walking around and asking people if they know what Chinese people look like and if they know where sailors hang out. And there's going to be a lot of short conversations to be had in this game, which makes up the bulk of the gameplay. So one of the interesting things about Shenmue, besides it's one of the first games to really utilize this type of open world gameplay, is that between these events, you have a full day and night cycle. On some days, you'll have to meet up with somebody or do something at a specific time, and you have to wait that entire time to get to that next point. There's no quick saves. Well, in this new version, there's no time skipping, basically. You can't fast travel to the next day, so you have to wait that day out. And between that day, you can do things such as play video games in the arcade, throw drunken darts even though you're a minor, and refuse to drink alcohol at any chance you get. I mean, seriously, look at the way he's aiming this dart. You can't sit here and look at this video and tell me that he's not completely plastered. And you can also take care of a kitten. This is a kitten simulator and a walking simulator all in one. And based on your little decisions like taking care of this kitten, you'll get extra cutscenes and stuff like that. The game does a very good job of putting you in this realistic world, and you'll constantly find yourself running into random encounters that you may not have encountered if you were able to just skip time, which is a feature I believe is in the second game. I haven't played the second game, but I think one of the main reasons they didn't provide a skip time option in this is because it would have absolutely broken some of the sequences in the game. For example, you can actually fast travel to the town from your house in the mornings, but if you do that, you could miss sequences or cutscenes and stuff like that in the town because you're directly skipping all of that. So some of the negatives like that, such as skip time, are kind of like a double-edged sword, because if you provided a way to skip that, you would also be breaking the core experience of the game. And like I said, a lot of people aren't going to be enthralled in this gameplay. They're not going to enjoy it. But what makes Shenmue such a good game is that it's based on real-world locations. And also, another thing that Shenmue does is something that I don't think is done in most, if any, other open-world games, is that every single person you interact with in that game has a real personality trait about them. Everybody has an identification. Everybody has a set schedule. Everybody has a job to do. And if you sit there, time-lapse, you'll see people go in and out of different buildings and do certain things within the different days. And it's a really interesting concept that isn't something that's fully explored in a game like Grand Theft Auto, because obviously it would be extremely unrealistic to give every single civilian that. We focus now more on population over quality of characters, and I think that's an interesting design choice that Shenmue does, and it's something that makes it really interesting to play even today. Another thing that Shenmue does really good is the map, and this is something that Yakuza, which also borrows a lot of inspiration from in Shenmue, has been praised for, and that's quality over quantity. It's a much smaller, condensed area, but the thing about Shenmue's map is that it's based on a real-world location, and every single building that you go into or interact with is actually based on a real building that would be in that location. You can actually download a PDF file that was used as some promotional material back in the day in 1999 when this came out, before Grand Theft Auto 3, may I add, where you can actually see the real-world buildings and places that this was based off of, and I feel like that gives another slice of realism to it that a lot of games just don't provide. Sure, you could say Grand Theft Auto 5 is loosely affiliated with Hollywood, but there's a lot of different areas that's kind of exaggerated, and that's partially due to it being such a massive world, but I think Shenmue does a really good job of condensing it down and making it feel like a real world. Jim Sterling says that this game was basically like the alpha or the beta of the following games to come, but I feel like this game still does a really good job of grounding you and just putting you in this relaxed, realistic environment. environment. Sure, the voice acting and other things definitely haven't held up very well. It's kind of hard to put it into words unless you've played it yourself. The game just has this way of drawing you in, and I'm sure this is something that can be said for a lot of open world games, but specifically in Shenmue, there's just something special about it that there is to be experienced. And it also has a relaxed gameplay that something like Yakuza 0 does not. I have played that game a good bit. Not a whole lot that I can give an in-depth opinion on, but what I can say is that there's a lot less to worry about in Shenmue. You can relax, you can run around and talk to people without worrying about a random fight encounter every 5 seconds or having to really focus on where you need to go in specific locations. Shenmue's really easy to follow, and it has this really relaxed gameplay that I think anybody could really get into, if they're interested in that type of game, that is. I want to talk about the physical release here for a second because I feel like it definitely deserves special mention. Some of the things that I really like about Shenmue notably is just the little attention to details. They just did a lot and they packed as much as they could into the game to make it feel like a real living, breathing world. And the little attentions to detail even trickle down to this physical release that I never thought we would see today. If you told me such a small niche game like this would be coming back and you'd be able to pick up a physical release of it that also has a poster inside, both games on disc, and a reversible cover art, I wouldn't believe you, because that's just not something that really happens in this day and age. I don't know how they managed to get this to happen. I was the only other person at my GameStop that actually pre-ordered and picked this thing up, but I am very, very happy that they did this. This is such a cool thing to have, and I'm tempted to buy another copy of it just to have it sealed. But as somebody who can really appreciate these physical releases, it's really cool to see the little things that they threw into this physical release that they really didn't have to do, but they did it anyway for the fans, and they knew they would like it. And I'm really happy to have this poster in here, and I'm going to keep it in here until I'm able to actually frame it up. The fans are what really made this happen. I remember there were constant tweeting sessions where they would ask for this game, and they would ask Sega to do this because Sega has the rights to it, and Yu Suzuki himself couldn't put this out. And this went on for months within Shenmue 3's announcements. I mean, it makes sense. It's such an old game, they're going to release Shenmue 3 on a new console. You got to give people a way to play the older games, right? They could have just slapped this on a blank disc and called it good because that's all people were really asking for, but they went to the time to actually add updated resolution scaling and bloom lighting, which really does help the first game out a lot. It looks really, really good. If you compare the two, especially if you compare it to the Dreamcast version, it's a huge improvement. Overall, there were some glitches I ran into with this, like certain audio not playing at specific times and these weird ass bugs where a video scene would play, but it would just stick on like the last thing that I picked up beforehand, like this.
Why? What you gonna do? Ryo-san, where are you going? You're not going after them. Please don't. Look what they did to Hazuki-sensei.
Ryo, while you're still sleeping in bed, farmers are working hard in the fields, carefully picking carrots one by one. So how can you waste them like that?
Okay, I'll eat them.
Good. That's my boy.
But these little glitches are minor, they're few and far between, and I honestly think you can still have a great time with this game. Honestly, it's the most practical way to play these two games and probably the best looking. So overall, I think the pros outweigh the cons on this one, especially since they were able to get this in a physical release like this. Again, really cool. Hey, Activision, Spyro, you know, if you could get all 3 games on a Blu-ray or 2, that would be fantastic. Final closing thoughts here. If you are ever interested in playing these games or picking them up at all, you have no excuse now. This is on PC, PS4, Xbox One. It's fantastic. They did a really good job of porting this over, and it's only $30 for 2 games. And if you're getting the physical release, you get a reversible cover art and a poster, dude. Great deal. It's $30. You really don't have a lot to lose on this, and I feel like it's a great experience, and you're definitely getting your money's worth with it. With that being said, I'm going to wrap the video up here, guys. If I missed anything, drop it in the comments. This was going to kind of be a more in-depth, comprehensive review, but I couldn't bring myself to do that type of thing, so I hope you still enjoyed the way the video turned out anyways, and if you enjoy these types of videos, let me know, because I wanted to do something like this for a long time. I've had this gameplay sitting here since this came out, and I just haven't really known what to do with it, but hope you guys enjoyed. I'm gonna cut it here. That's it. It's been T. Yeah.
鈴木さんは贅沢な要求を出しました。Deja vu, I just been in this place before. Higher on the street and I know it's my time to go.
Look at his little hands. He can't even hold